Hey everybody, this is Grace, and I wanted to mention something funny before I forget. How many of you have ever done this? You say, oh, I want to watch something that's a little more wholesome, good people, functional families instead of dysfunctional. People that really were, good family oriented and this stuff like that, on and on and on. Back in the good old days when everything wasn't so harsh and all. So you watch some series from back then on one of these, whatever they're calling them these days. This one I'm watching on Prime, I think. Yeah, it's, you ready? You probably saw it in the title. I'll probably put it in the title. It's the Waltons. Well, let me tell you, Waltons came out, if I don't remember what month, but just say I was 8 or 9, probably 9 years old. And that was a long time ago. I'm 62. And say I was 8 or 9 years old. And what I remember of the show, because how many seasons did it go? 9 years? I guess I was 18 when it stopped. But watching it, I remember it as something good, wholesome, very good family. They got along and all this stuff. Well, now that I'm watching it, and I'm on the 3rd season, some of them, especially the 2nd season, I just couldn't watch. It had gotten to where, it was just like, But so much misfortune, so much, something would go bad, but then everything would go okay, pretty much. Not always, but sometimes. And, I was thinking back in the good old days, but that was about the Depression era. And like right in the 1st season, they talked about that. They talked about, not talked about, it was about, during the Depression era when people really were starving, didn't have enough money, and oh man, they were talking about Hitler. They had a family that had escaped Hitler. They had it's a drama. It's, I guess you fall into drama, family drama show. I don't know how they term them these days. Everything changes, trust me. So much, not everything, but so much will change in your lifetime if you live long enough. But anyway, and they talked about so many different things, and it can be a little bit overwhelming. But I have to say something else about family. When Adam and I went for lunch today, we went to a buffet place, and we were talking, and I have been asking him about the shows that he watches, the kind of shows he watches, and asking him his favorite and what was the strangest, because he likes to watch those shows that you see on like ID or Snapped or, stuff like that. Yeah, he does. He says he likes to watch how they investigate, the investigative side to it all. Okay, dude. I don't like to watch them. I've watched them, but I'm not really that much of a fan. But anyway, I asked him about that. So I told him what I was watching. He knows that I'm watching the Waltons, and I told him, I said, that show, I always thought it was such a great family. I said, but those kids, just now in the 3rd season, watching them, I don't remember any of those episodes. I said, those kids are just, they're not the greatest kids. When they were all kids, going to high school, going to school, all of them were in school. In just different grades. There's 7 of them. I came from a family of 5, so I can understand. They were loud, just like mine. They're loud. They're, it's not really yelling at one another. What's the word I was thinking? Shouting. Instead of just using a normal inside voice, it's shouting. Gimme, gimme, gimme. And I would sit there when I was young. I was real smart. And come home from school, do my homework. And my mom would come up to me and she'd say, you just tuned it all out, don't you? You just tuned it all out. I said, yeah, sure do. I sure do. And I would. My siblings would be in, 4 of them, back in the background, yelling, screaming, shouting at one another. Not me. Okay, yeah, I was losing my voice. Still am. Every time I'm out here making videos, that's what happens. But yeah, that's how it was when I was growing up, and at some point I'd finally had enough at each, when they do this, if they did it long enough, and I'd tell them, y'all all better stop now. I was the middle of the five. Well, actually, I was the fourth. Wasn't the middle. But close enough. I was that fourth child. The fourth child, there's a thing about the fourth child I remember reading, and that is that they're the ones that will observe the behaviors of other people. And, their siblings. And like me, I don't remember if it said that. There was something else more about it, but me, I would tell them, that's it. Enough is enough. And they generally would listen to me. Enough was enough. But that Walton show, my goodness, they would yell and scream, and they go to that store, and there was yelling all the way there and yelling at one another, yell, 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 shout, shout, shout. Go into the store all happy and all hyper all over the place. Did they do that on purpose for that show? Of course they did. But what were they trying to say? I mean, that was more than just rowdiness, I guess. It was just obnoxious to me. Every time I see it, I'm like, they think this. And not only that, I should go to this part. They also would throw fits of rage when they didn't get their way. Or, one of them, he actually pouted and ran away because he didn't, because nobody was listening to him, which actually, when I was watching it was yesterday, and it was kind of sad that nobody was listening to him, and they just interrupt him, and he's the youngest boy, and they basically tell him, dismiss him. And I do know how it is to be dismissed, because the other ones are too busy, and no, that was inappropriate of the family to treat him that way. But he was a little kid and he ran away. Okay, that was little kid. So he ran away bad. I mean, it was bad, seriously. And kept trying to get away from the John Boy character, who was an adult in college at that time, 18 years old and at college, and had to go find him. But the kids weren't the greatest kids. I think they showed at some point, each and every one of them had a bad part of their personality. Each and every one of them, I can't think of any of them that they didn't show at some point. It's having something bad about their personality. So what we think, what we remember, and I've always known this, okay, what we think and we remember about our own youth, probably was not as great as we really remember it as being. We say, the good old days. Some of those weren't all good. They're old, but, from far long ago, they weren't really all that good at always. I mean, always. Sometimes, some of them were good days. You didn't have so much, so many. What I see these days more than then, they were showing that, some of these kids, they were wanting to get attention and stuff. But nowadays, it's like that's all. Pretty much, I mean, do you know of any child who's humble? I was raised to be very humble. And, which, there's extremes on anything. But nowadays, it's not like, it's more like what I see. And I have worked with a lot of kids up until, not too long ago. But I plan on, once I get all of my health back, mainly my hip, I go tomorrow to a doctor. We're going to start putting me on the medication finally for my rare health condition after I've had it since at least 10 years old when the symptoms started showing up. I'm 62, so finally they're going to put me on medication for it. And tomorrow is supposed to be the day when I go back with my report from the doctor. Let me make sure it's in my purse. Hasn't somehow escaped, yes. Yep. Approved for this medication. Otherwise it would be like, I think $12,000 a year, something like that. So, and the approved is just that my insurance would let it go through. And anyway, so hopefully there's not another roadblock tomorrow. You know, it's gone pretty good with him. I mean, I still don't understand why all of these doctors, so many doctors hadn't clued me in on this medication, which is at least 10 years old. Yeah. Not a single one of them, not any of them, until this doctor told me that there's a medication now you can take. It doesn't involve surgery, because they won't do surgery because it was too risky since 2004. That's when I was told it was too risky. Nobody said anything otherwise since then. But yeah, guess what? It got to where it wasn't risky. But now they won't do it because of my age. So if they're going to say on this pill, if they say, well, we don't really want to give it to you because of, you know, I've had a lifetime, 62 years of this problem, so I guess in a way I would be very, what can you be? You know what I'm saying? What can you be? Really? What can I be? It's been disappointment after disappointment. It's been doctor after doctor who really just didn't know what they're doing. So, anyway, I'm wrapping up. I'm tired. I'll talk to you on that video.